Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically hockey. Even more specifically, we just look at Canada. We don't even talk about the United States at all. Nothing. I'm your co-host, Mick. Find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every week by my lovely, talented co-host. You can hear his theme song. Do not blame him because he's beautiful.
Grant on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. I was really I was like, which beautiful song is he talking about?
Don't hate me. Oh, it's Don't Hate Me Because I'm Beautiful. That's the theme song. So, don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
Man, I don't even know which one that is.
It came on a Pump Up Girl workout playlist that my wife played the other day when we were lifting weights. So, and it's been stuck in my head for the last 5 days. It's amazing.
It's a good way to feel good about yourself, too, though. Lifting weights with your wife. Like, oh, I'm so much stronger than you, you loser. Yeah. Ah!
Oh, you can't even get that off your chest? Oh, that sucks.
Oh, man. Well, yeah.
Psychological gains, too, guys. Psychological gains.
We don't fuck around. If you didn't know Mick before, you could take that. He wasn't kidding. He'll let you sit with that barbell on your chest. You're gonna have to weasel your way out of it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you got it up. Only one way to get it off. So that's it. If this is your first show, we are going to be looking at the week that was in hockey. Probably looking at the Canadian teams, talking about how they're doing, kind of stories, headlines, as it were. We got some fantasy. A fantasy segment. I wouldn't call it advice other than don't do what Johnny Don't does is probably the best way to describe that. We could talk about gambling. Some good, some not so good. And maybe look at some boobs. Be a good show, right?
You know, I think the boobs is probably what gets people through the first 60 minutes. It's like, you know what? They're eventually going to be there. So, And I was very proud of the work that I accomplished this week. Gambling advice, not so much, but coming up with a few babes of the week, I'm excited. We got lots to look forward to.
Well, you got to have something good, because, yeah, if you're coming for actual advice, I'm not saying we're at the point where you should just start, like, viciously fading our takes, but
you wouldn't be wrong for doing it.
No, everyone has their slumps. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the standings. We're going to go overall. I'm going to quickly scroll to the bottom of the league so that we don't spoil anything. And we're just going to make fun of Canadian teams that suck. Because they all suck, but like the Winnipeg Jets. Who saw that coming? Paul Maurice didn't see that coming. That's who didn't see that coming.
My God. I still think he saved face when he needed to save face, but anyways.
We'll get maybe we'll talk about this in the Winnipeg segment, but yeah, like, all right, so bottom 5, good news. No Canadian teams, guys. A couple California teams and the Arizona Coyotes. Who saw that coming? All right, it's 6th. Montreal. What happened? It used to be cool.
Yeah, you did used to be cool, Montreal. I don't know what the hell's going on. They had that win over Nashville this week. That was, I think, their 3rd win in their last 12, 14 games, something like that.
They're 2-7-1 in the last 10 on 1-game win streak. So,
yeah, sounds about right. So, I don't know what's going on with Montreal, but whatever. Maybe they just accepted their fate that it's better to have Connor Bedard next year than be a non-playoff team this year, but try your best. Maybe it was a mentality shift.
I mean, sample size. In October, in September in football, in October in hockey, we talk sample size. The sample size is very small, guys. The Buffalo Sabres probably aren't going to be undefeated this year, right? Owen Powers probably isn't the greatest, offensive defenseman of all time. The Montreal Canadiens, only, having 3 viable offensive threats, maybe a line, and being kind of a mess everywhere else is going to catch up with you. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing is just that kind of regression towards the mean. And I probably would have told you they sucked at the start of the year, and now it looks like they're sucking now, right?
Yeah, they were all over our sucky radar. They may have fallen into a little bit of their trap because we're like, they do have young, talented players. Right. But at this stage of the game, their best move, the best thing they could possibly do for their franchise is trade away every serviceable NHL player that they have immediately, so that they have the best odds come draft and a draft lottery night, whenever that is, right before the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're rebuilding, rebuild. Don't push the issue, right? And I with any rebuild through sports, let them grow, let them develop. Don't do the Ottawa this last summer, right? Try and avoid those as best you can, right?
Yeah, and one thing that would, like, I think that should excite most hockey fans is imagine, so we've seen Martin St. Louis get the best out of Cole Caulfield, some of their other younger players. Imagine a Connor Bedard being mentored or coached by Martin St. Louis.
Yeah.
We might see like a new dimension to Connor Bedard if that's the case.
I mean, that extra skill set brought in with already some of the outstanding talent they have. Whew, hell of a nice pieces. They also did a ceremony this week with PK Subban. I don't know if it was the Canadians specifically or like Montreal. So that's kind of nice that sounds like they've kind of patched things over and they've, I don't know, like kind of moved on a little bit. And now we're years removed from the Subban for Weber trade. It kind of made sense that they did it, right? At the time, optically, I didn't really understand it. I was frustrated by the move. But now, like, years removed, I get it. Shea Weber was a pretty incredible talent, right? Literally up until his last NHL game. So I kind of understand why you would move this franchise icon of what Subban was and this community hero, right? Like there's a wing of a children's hospital named after him for a player of that talent, right? So it's kind of nice that we're, I guess, like far enough removed to like look back at that trade and say, I kind of get it. I can accept it for what it was, right? Like long term. Like I don't think they knew what they were doing at the time, but it kind of worked, I guess. Sure.
I would say it was probably much ado about nothing. But I think who it came at the expense of was probably PK Subban, because that man is retired. I think he's younger than us. Like I think he's like 87, 88. Like maybe he's even younger than that. Anyways, he was an exceptional talent. He played on Team Canada. He leaves Montreal and what was it? Nashville, Jersey. Maybe he ended up somewhere else. Yeah. But like other than knowing that he ended up in Nashville, I didn't really hear from him. Is that the power of the Canadian market, or did Subban just fucking hit a hole?
Yeah, he had one. There was 1 year. They actually went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm pretty sure Subban was part of that roster, and they were against the
Penguins.
Penguins? Is that how that works? Lost to the Penguins, but like, and then I think just health caught up with him, and he wasn't able to kind of play at his level, and he decided to kind of step away. Right, he wasn't taking a tertiary role. He is, look, I'm PK Subban. I want to play the primary role on your team. I want to give you these intangibles. He couldn't do that at that point, and rather than just be a bit player, right, come into the organization, work with the guys, he decided to walk away. Right, that's just not who he is, and also a huge part to do with Canadian markets. Right, it's similar to the Shane Wright situation, right, with the Seattle Kraken, right? He got sent down to the minor leagues, even though maybe he should be playing in the NHL, and then there's like a trade, and you're like, oh, this poor kid. I guarantee that happens to 90% of minor league hockey players. That just kind of comes with the territory. But because he has the prestige of Shane Wright, he is Team Canada. He was a projected top 1 pick potentially, right? Like top 5 pick in the NHL draft. We put this clout around that story. Whereas I'm sure there's guys out there that are equally talented, have great pedigrees that get treated worse, but you just don't hear about them, right? So it's how kind of things are reported.
That kind of reminds me of, maybe not, I don't know. It just started to spur memories of Kyle Turris, because I think Kyle Turris was like a high draft pick.
Yeah.
Ended up in, I think he was 3rd, ended up in Arizona. People forgot about him. Mm-hmm. But then he was still, and maybe it's the credentials, and it's akin to what we're seeing, I think, in the NFL right now with Brock Purdy, where it's like you have this person who was drafted in the last round, and he's an exceptional talent, but And it's the opposite where I guess the shoe's on the other foot in this scenario where we're talking about guys who haven't lived up to expectations but can still be serviceable NHL players. And I don't think Shane Wright is going to be this uber talented, like, we know he's not a generation. I don't think he's a generational player. I don't think he's going to be an offensive player. I think he's going to fit the Kyle Turris mold where he's like, you got to be a two-way player in this league. Like 95% of forwards are two-way players. And I don't know. He seems kind of dickish. Hopefully he learns a lesson. If not, the Oilers will sign him in about 6 or 7 years and just say, look at our another top draft.
Yeah. Well, the story that, like the Shane Wright story, it kind of does remind me of the Leon Draisaitl, issue of him not getting to go home over Christmas and getting to play in the World Juniors because they wouldn't let him leave the team. They kept him, and he was kind of this poor little German boy kind of stuck by himself. Things turned out all right for Leon Draisaitl. So really, it's how you approach the situation. Shane Wright. I don't know why we're talking about Shane Wright at the bottom of the standings. Probably because Seattle should suck, but they don't. I don't understand it. It's the Vegas effect all over again. Hey, look, if we move up one spot, we get to talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Anything happen with Vancouver this week other than sucking at hockey?
I'm a reluctant pass. The only thing I know is that goaltending is an issue again. I saw that creep into the conversation. Yeah. Other than that, I haven't been paying attention.
Whereas Montreal, they were okay. They're in the bottom, but like I kind of feel collectively as the fan base, they're like, they probably like, yeah, we kind of suck. We're going to beat the Leafs once or twice more this season, right? Like, that'll make us feel better as a fan base. We'll get a top draft pick. Cool. Let's roll. Vancouver, on the other hand, there were some statements. Tanner Pearson had a second-hand surgery that was unsuccessful. He is now done for the season. Quinn Hughes came out afterwards and criticized. He wishes, I believe the quote was, he wished the situation was handled differently. Handled better is his quote. Did not elaborate. There is now apparently a witch hunt going on in the Vancouver Canucks situation because no one, the GM, the president, the medical staff, they're not sure exactly what Quinn Hughes, their star, future talent, is talking about. Unless Quinn Hughes is saying, I want out of this shithole organization that can't even, fix guys' fingers properly. So I don't know if the writing's on the wall there. So it's a panic time in Vancouver. It's... Oh boy! So you could suck and suck. Good job, Vancouver.
Okay, listen to this: 5 goals against, 5 goals against, 7 goals against, 2 goals against, 6 goals against. So it's been a tough run through 5 games in 2023. 25 goals against. That's something else.
Yeah, Vancouver. I don't know. You suck. You're worse than Philadelphia. As I'm scrolling up, I'm saying Philadelphia is terrible, guys. Terrible. Hey, look, at 24th overall, or 24th from, overall. Okay. The Ottawa Senators. So, go Canada.
Oh, man. Poor Sens. I like their jerseys. I'll say that much. I feel like their jerseys pop when I see them on TV. I'm like, yeah, Sens look good. Doesn't matter. They are aesthetically pleasing. Maybe they don't look good per se, but I don't know what's going on with Ottawa either. I haven't tuned in enough or paid close enough attention to their on-ice product to figure out what exactly is going on. But I know that they started off as you predicted, in that rut, and it feels like they haven't really had their takeoff moment where they build momentum and get wins going.
Now there's a theory of just how a season progresses. Start off hot, get your lead, play 500 hockey, make the playoffs. Right? They started off really slowly, and they're like 5-4-1 in the last 10. They're playing 500 hockey now. Cool, great. But when you need to be better than that to kind of overcome those early season deficits, and we just haven't seen that. And I don't know if there's help coming. Their goaltending situation has been a mess for ever, right? Like, when do you have to go back and say, I really love what Ottawa is doing in net? Like, Dominic Hasek? Ray Emery? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how far back do we have to go in time to say, like, Ottawa was fine in net when, right? I can't really recall, right? Like, they have blimps, they have hamburgers sometimes play in net that do well, but, like, I don't know.
I think Craig Anderson, for his time in Ottawa, I think that it was productive time, and I think there were I'm pretty sure he made the All-Star game.
Well,
Anyways,
he was in that year. They went to the Eastern Finals against the Pens, right? So,
and that's not to diminish your point, because I get what you're saying. And goaltending is a fucking dumpster fire in the Sens organization. But if this team played in a division other than the Atlantic Division, man, maybe it's just a sizable gap. Maybe this team isn't as bad as we think they are. Maybe they're just trying to compete with teams that are just so much better than who they are.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think they read the room wrong, and I think they thought they were further ahead in their development than they were, and they pulled some triggers too early, and now they're kind of left looking at the pieces, and now they're in a really tough spot, right? Do you run it back next year and hope it was just an anomaly and then burn a year of all these young kids' talents? Or I feel for you, Ottawa. I do. I've hated you in the past. I enjoyed the squad. I want to see nice things. I want to see the Tim Stritzels and the Kachucks enjoying themselves.
I want to see Ryan Reynolds more, so I think we're both going to get what we want next year, because I don't think Stützle or Tkachuk, there's any chance of them leaving town. Maybe some other guys, but
yeah,
the appeal, the eye appeal right now is Ryan Reynolds. We could look at Ryan Reynolds night in and night out and watch him talk hockey. That's exciting stuff.
Okay, let's do this. So the Ottawa Senators. I'm just curious, what's it called? Cap friendly. What is Debricant a free agent?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know if he came in here.
He is. So it was an RFA after this year, so they do have the rights to sign the 25-year-old. What's that guy going to be worth?
What's his salary right now?
6.4. Tkachuk is working off his 8.2. Drew's on the team for another 2 years after the season, 6.5. Batherson signed for 5. And then Strutzel's 8.3 kicks in next year as well. So what are you going to be spending? Are you giving Debricant at this point $8 million to keep him? Or is he walking away?
Yeah, I think they would be wise to trade Debricant. Knowing the weight of some of those other salaries, you could get, I guarantee you the Oilers would give you maybe even Puljujarvi and a top pick. Maybe not a first rounder if you're taking P2J, but you could potentially load up and not expedite the rebuild, but add to your coffers for future years. I think that's the piece they should move on from. Effectively a rental at the trade deadline. Why not?
Hey, you brought him into the organization. He hasn't quite clicked, right? If him and Tkachuk become best friends and they work on a line and they have flawless chemistry, you keep them. But guess what? You took a swing. You gave up a second. If you bring a second back into your organization and another young piece, that's fool's gold at this point, right? Hell, keep part of his salary. You're not doing anything with it. So you got $3.2 million going out the door for an Alexander Debricant type player. That might be a first and a prospect, right? Or
I was just thinking that with the salary retained pieces, a first and Puljujarvi for Debricant, 14 goals. The Oilers need a trigger, man. 14 goals isn't bad through 41 games, but 38 points, he's a big offensive contributor.
That's it. And then just move that headache of that contract to another team, thinking we can find, there's another piece somewhere, right? Somebody's going to be botting out here, right? Philadelphia sucks. One of these clubs is going to be looking to move pieces, right? So, there you go. Interesting. Sorry, Ottawa. I wish I could say nice things about you, but I can't. You're only 1 point worse than the Florida Panthers, so. Oh, and the Buffalo
I don't know
Sabres.
if that's a blessing or a curse. Florida's kind of terrible this year.
They're only 2 points behind the Colorado Avalanche, and they won the Stanley Cup, so relatively, Ottawa, kick ass.
So, what you're saying is the Ottawa Senators are 2 overtime losses away from a Stanley Cup championship, basically.
You heard it here. That is what I said, so you can quote me on that. Okay, I'm up to 16th. I'm seeing the Pittsburgh Penguins looking for another Canadian squad. And the Oilers at 15th.
As bad as it seems that they're in 15th, it has been a productive couple of games for them.
Okay.
Last Saturday they blew that lead to the Avs. Not a good look. Up to Cobb, you lose 3-2 in overtime on home ice. I was expecting a little bit. It was one of those classic revenge spots Western Conference Championship. I was hoping that they'd show up, but it just wasn't a complete effort. But they responded nicely. They knocked off Anaheim earlier in the week. What was that, Wednesday? San Jose last night. They're back in action tonight. So bit of a run, bit of a productive run. Their offense has come to life, but they need more consistency because they keep fluctuating between in and out of a playoff spot, and that's not where you want to be with two guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on your roster.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like, is it literally just Jack Campbell? Like, is Jack Campbell literally the finger to blame, or is it just an organizational downfall, right? They kind of overachieved last year by getting to the conference finals, and now we're seeing kind of that those checks and balances, as it were, right? Like, this is kind of more of what this squad is supposed to be, and the two best players in the NHL do not make a hockey team.
I think maybe part of it is, regression following an extended run, but they're playing their own end remains a concern, and that is goaltending's been a bit of an issue. Campbell had a shutout through the 58 minutes. Sharks ended up scoring a late one last night, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come between the pipes. But defensively, they just seem to get outworked, like in their own end. If you have the puck down low, it feels like they don't have the defensive wherewithal to get things going or take pucks away or take chances away. So that's why I think we talked about Joel Edmondson last week. They need a big presence, kind of like a Darnell Nurse, but somebody who doesn't get $9 million a year, where they can just play that complete shutdown role, because that's what they really need in their own end right now. That's what's costing them.
I wonder how... I don't want to get into it. I'm fine. We're seeing, if you have two of the most offensively gifted players of a generation, they do kind of unfortunately play one way, right? I would not say McDavid or Draisaitl defensively are quite responsible, right? And maybe you're seeing that on his product. But the other story that coming out was, I know McDavid was quoted as saying that he's not a fan of the shootout. He thinks it's a crappy way to just end games. It's kind of a downer. He thinks it's kind of ran its course, and he's ready to move on. So when you have the best player, the face of the NHL, as it were, basically criticizing how you guys end regulation, what does the NHL do with this information, right? Do they kind of look at this and say, yeah, we need to go to 3-on-3 overtime for 10 minutes or something like that, right? We need to adjust something. And then there's also a bit of a talk of just realignment. I've seen that quite a bit. I've seen lots of polls of, do we need to redo how the NHL does playoffs? Like, it's kind of, it's done, I think. It's kind of, I don't know. I think people are sick of it. Do we need to make that change?
I don't. So I would take that a step further, and I would say nobody ever liked the current playoff format. But on the note of the Connor McDavid's comments on overtime / a shootout, I don't even know if the Oilers have been to a shootout this year. Maybe once. And I think it's just because they are so, they are an all or nothing team at 3-on-3. You either have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl scoring, or you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl behind the goal line, and they're giving up chances. So I would say, 10 minutes, that seems like a long time to me. I guess I agree. There's kind of a novelty about the shootout where it's like, I don't really care one way or another. It's inconsequential to me. Someone's going to win, but I think maybe there's bigger fish to fry. It's not a point that resonates with me. The guy doesn't want to do shootouts, fine. I get it, Connor McDavid. We've been yelling at Gary Bettman for years about what we don't like that he does, and he still does it anyways. So, falls on deaf ears. Sorry, Connor.
It is weird that they hockey... There's the traditionalists, the number of arguments I've had with people that will just say, this is the way it's done, and you need to have 2 points for a win, and you couldn't make it 3. That would blow all the record books away. Great, awesome. I'm glad you're a dinosaur. But they do things so goofy. In theory, hockey should be a standardized format, right? Soccer around the world is played 45 minutes, and you play another 45 minutes, and then there's a little bit of overtime, unless you go to shootouts, like penalty kicks or something. Also kind of a terrible way of ending like a World Cup. It's exciting, but like kind of shit. It's just weird that hockey doesn't have like a standardized format across the board, right? Like regular season or in tournament, right? Like a round robin is this format. Playoffs or brackets or something is done this way. So it's just weird that, I don't know, like there isn't like a standardized format for this game.
Yeah. Could you imagine how we could liven up soccer, though? Like, imagine if you could play defense on, like, shootouts. Because, like, if we're talking about non-standardized sports, why don't we make that the threshold and bring teams, other sports to that level? And that's why I was thinking, like, maybe that's when you give all the hooligans flares and, like, home teams could just pelt away players. It's like...
Anarchy.
Anarchy. That's a big part of it. But I don't want to sound like a dinosaur, but I feel like some of the changes other leagues are making, specifically baseball, they just don't have a landing spot. Like, it's just something they're trying to force things to stay relevant. It's not the same with the NHL, and I'm not trying to pacify dinosaurs. I just feel like there has to be a reason for the change. And I don't know. I don't know if I trust Gary Bettman to do it, because every time he makes a change, generally I've been let down.
Yeah. And I mean, I can play devil's advocate all day. It was more of a talking point. Oh, look at that. If we jump up one spot at 14, lucky 14. Oh, it's the date today. How cute. We get the Calgary Flames, who I guess they have a game in hand, same amount of points as the Oilers. So, Calgary.
I did a little bit of a dive on Calgary earlier this week, and they've been their efforts haven't been complete in the sense they're not playing 3 periods. It's like they're always let down by one shitty period, and from what I gathered, it was a lot of third period letdowns. But that wasn't the case this week. I forget who they knocked off 4-1, but another team that lacks consistent effort, and it could hurt.
Louis?
Maybe it was 4-1 over St. Louis. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I do some scoreboard watching. I don't know if I've seen a Flames game since maybe they lost in overtime to the Leafs or something. But like, they don't seem dangerous. They don't seem that exciting. They just seem kind of like a bland Daryl Sutter squad. I have no interest in watching you, to be honest with you, Calgary. I hope. I mean, I guess you are where you are, but if you were worse, I wouldn't care.
That was the other thing I was thinking about. They lost to the Blackhawks in overtime. And part of me was like, before puck drop, I was like, I'm going to bet on Chicago. And then I talked myself out of it. I was like, that's just your rooting interest in the Oilers, hoping they lose. They lost in overtime, but they still lost.
All right. So we got Washington, Minnesota, Tampa Bay. We're in the top 10. We see the Seattle Kraken, the unstoppable, the 8 wins in a row or something, wherever they're at. Go Seattle. Good job. Rangers, Kings. That seems weird. Winnipeg Jets. Also odd. Winnipeg Jets. There you go. You guys are kicking ass. They haven't stopped. 7-3. Any new updates coming out of Winnipeg? Did anyone figure out why they're playing so well? The cohesiveness, the teamwork.
I watched a Winnipeg Jets game last night. I don't watch a lot of hockey per se, but I watched them and the Penguins at least the first two periods last night. And I was really impressed. And one thing that kind of stood out for me was, one, you've got, and maybe, I don't know if it was just last night was the exception, but they're very good in the neutral zone. Like, you got to be able to move quickly against them. And it's not even 5-on-5. Like, even their penalty kill, there's like 0 entry points. And I think that that's a natural segue into what their biggest strength is. And that's controlled entries with possession. Because they do it on like 80% of their zone entries, which is just fascinating. And I think that that's why they're having so much success with their offense this year, at least from what I saw last night. Is like every time it's like crossovers into the zone with the puck, I'm like, that's how you gain speed, that's how you keep defenders moving, and that's how you break down and eventually create these chances. And it worked last night, and looking back at some of their metrics, is like, this is a good offensive team, and I think that that's a big part of their success is how they enter the attacking zone.
Excellent. Okay, cool. There, we know something what's going on with Winnipeg. Paul Maurice, head coach in Florida. Florida is almost as terrible as Ottawa. So, I don't know. Poor Paul Maurice. What a curious. I was watching, for some reason, I saw a Panthers game, and I saw Paul Maurice, and I said, huh, I had no idea that you were there. Also, I don't know, just weird. Like, when he left, I really thought bad things were coming for Winnipeg. I really, really thought that was signs. I thought he was an outstanding coach. I thought he was a good leader in that organization. And apparently, did he just fall on deaf ears? Like, is that what happens? Like, is it just his system fell apart? He can't make the in-game adjustments. He's not coaching to strengths as well. Because it kind of looks like he was more of the issue in Winnipeg than anything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, an apples-to-apples comparison, you're not wrong, because they're effectively the same team that they were last year with a better system in place, and they're thriving. And then the litmus test now is that, he's implemented his system in Florida, and now the Florida Panthers suck. So maybe he's lost an edge. I can't imagine doing this for 3 decades and achieving success all the time. Not that the game's gonna pass you by, but at a certain point, there's just a natural evolution to things. And there's very few coaches who stay on top of the coaching game, and it's not unique to hockey either. Maybe it's more pronounced in hockey, but there's coaches across every league where you're there's just a couple people who get it and they could do it for decades. Very few. Mm-hmm. Maybe Paul Maurice just isn't one of those all-time coaching greats.
Yeah, and I think football is probably the greatest indicator, right? Because it's kind of a shorter sample size, and you can kind of see teams' products. And yeah, you can watch the greats. They kind of continue on with organizations, but even some of the good guys, they still have their down. Say what you want about Kyle Shanahan. Great system, implements it well, but he always seems to just come up short, right? He can't overcome himself in the playoffs. Right? So I could see just falling on deaf ears, or just, I don't know, not getting it. But then Daryl Sutter, for some reason, system works in Calgary a couple years ago. Why not? Sure. It literally just might be who you're talking to as well, right? You could have the greatest supervisor, coach, or manager in the world show up for your team, but if you're kind of that guy seems like an asshole, he's not the greatest manager, right? He just doesn't connect with you. So
that's kind of the Bill Belichick argument. How the fuck has this guy been good? He's such a dick. Does he just buy he must have maybe a revolving door of strippers that just comes and goes out the back door that keeps everybody entertained. But on the outside looking in on Bill Belichick, I'm who the fuck would listen to this guy?
Yeah. All right, that is a strange one. Let's see. So we only have one left. Where are they? They're third. Wow. Okay, tied with the Carolina Hurricanes, second overall. 9 points back of the Boston Bruins, who are still in first. And there you go. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Anything going on with Toronto?
I don't have too much on the Leafs. I feel like I've been spouting the same rhetorical nonsense week in and week out. What do you got on the Flames this week?
They are who they are. They are playing exceptionally well. I've seen something since December 15th. Their goaltending metrics, so save percentage, goals against, or something 32nd in the league. So they've actually just been terrible on the back end, right? But they've kind of overcome it because of every other part of the organization, right? The only point I had and thought was, if I was Toronto and I had some pieces that maybe I didn't want, say I wanted to make a bigger splash at the trade deadline this year, right? Maybe take a center like an Alexander Kerfoot, who's probably moving on from the organization. We're not going to repay you after this year. You're not really producing. You're closer to a second line center, but we don't really we don't need you because we have Matthews, we have Tavares. We can kind of make up. We're gonna go trade to get some other pieces. Should they do the Seattle Kraken a favor and say, hey, Seattle, you guys need depth. A number 2 center could work. We have this guy Alexander Kerfoot. I think could really work for organization, and give them a fair trade, because the Kraken basically gave away Mark Giordano last year, and I was thinking about how great would it be if Mark Giordano had stayed with the Kraken, right, instead of whatever the second round pick that they got, and just that level of leadership, the tenacity, the grit that he brings. That's kind of how Seattle is playing, right? They're not the flashiest squad. They have some speed and they're putting some pucks in net, right? But like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I've seen, the Kraken kind of have that Mark Giordano paintbrush, to help them kind of build that base, that foundation of their organization. So I feel like Toronto should do something nice for the little guys out there. And now that Seattle's doing something, they should, look at maybe giving them some players. I mean, a fair deal. I'm not saying give it away, but...
We're not borrowing any lyrics from Red Hot Chili Peppers songs on this podcast, that's for sure. But I will say Mark Giordano has made a difference on the back end. And also I saw a slight uptick in goaltending this week. Oh, okay. And that is they played the Flyers and they played the Predators. I was like, goaltending is in good shape. It was 1-1 going in the last 2 minutes of the third period against the Predators. Mm-hmm. And I think that was Matt Murray's night because I think Samsonov was the night before. But when you adjust it for opponents, like, is this goaltending trending up or is this just bad opponents?
Yeah.
So time will tell.
We'll see. I think tonight's a good litmus test, right? We're kind of seeing the heavyweight swings, right? And probably a second round matchup, because that's, again, how it should work. One should play 3 in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoff.
After 3 gets by 4th in the opening round. Go, Gary Bettman.
We did it, guys. We figured out math. All right, so that kind of ends headlines. We spent more time than we should have on the Toronto Maple Leafs. We just pass in the future. Nothing's going on. They're boring. They're the most boring number 3 overall seed I've ever seen.
We got to come up with a moniker, just like, Don Cherry was shitting on the Hurricanes, called them a bunch of jerks. Like a bunch of boring sluts. That's what the Toronto Maple Leafs are.
There we go. Let's see what other headlines I've got. 14-year-old Slovakian forward scores Michigan goal at the women's U18 tournament. Well, that's kind of impressive, I guess. Sort of. Not really. I don't know why I clicked that. Daily fantasy picks, courtesy of NHL.com. Oh, boy. How did they do last week, Grant? What do you think? Last week they had William Nylander. They had a goal. Guess how many goals he got?
6.
He had none. So that was very good. Dunn, Victor Dunn, Alex Dunn, I'm not sure. They think he was going to get an assist. He played for Seattle. They had 8 points. They scored 8 goals against the Senators. Guess how many assists he had?
14.5.
1. So I might maybe give him a check mark on that one, maybe. Power play point, man. Jordan Kyrou for the St. Louis Blues. All day, baby. He had 0. And then shots on goal, you look no further than the man, the myth, the legend, the MVP of the league, Taylor Hall. Guess how many shots on goal he had? Boston beat up, it was like LA or the Sharks 4-1.
0, but I bet you had 4 PIMs.
He had nothing. He had an empty stat line for 15 minutes of ice time. When I looked that up this morning, I said, why? Again, someone got paid for that. I could do that.
Former Hart Trophy winner Taylor Hall with a nothing stat line, playing with the best team in the league.
There we go. All right, so we're gonna let's see. Look again. What are they predicting today? So you want a goal? Oh boy, Detroit versus Columbus. Goals will be scored, and Robbie Fabry, that is the man to do it. Daniel Sprong.
Robbie Fabry?
Yeah.
Like with the Detroit Red Wings?
Yes.
Huh.
Players to watch for goals. So that's players to watch for a point. Daniel Sprong, forward for the Seattle Kraken. They're playing Seattle tonight or Chicago tonight. Maybe. Okay. Power play point. Man, Pavel Bushevich, Florida versus Tampa Bay all day. And then shots on goal. Obviously, want a guy. They do really well in this category. A couple weeks ago, they had Noah Dobson for the Islanders. They had Taylor Hall last week. Man, Brett Pesce for the Hurricanes against the defensive defensemen always get shots on goals. So
Good God.
I mean, on the write-up, if you read it, he's had 15 shots on goal over his past 4 games. So you know what the best way to find guys who have shots on goals is chase weird anomaly stats over the season and like go all in on that. So, yeah.
I gotta imagine with teams like Boston and Toronto and Edmonton and hell, even Vancouver, you could probably find somebody who's going to. Buffalo's playing tonight. You probably could have landed on someone else who's going to get a few more shots.
But like, I also just understand the metrics that. Yeah, you're right. Like shots on goal. Why wouldn't you just say like Connor McDavid against the Knights tonight are going to have 5? Like, just go with Connor McDavid. Like, you know, like this isn't hard. But like, they've made it really difficult. Like, all right. Now, speaking of fantasy picks, you wanna oh boy, do you want to hear some crap? How about listening to the guy make fun of someone for who went 49th out of 51 in his $50 entry? That's almost dead last, people. It's almost dead last. I did not do well. 57.8 points last week. My FanDuel lineup did. Connor McDavid up front, 14 points. Nick Suzuki, 19.7. Okay, that's all right. Lucas Raymond, big fat 0. When Detroit played Toronto. Unless it was the game from like a couple nights ago, and then I think he scored and got an assist. So what happened? Batherson, nothing. Sandin, Lindgren, horrendous. Michael Bunting, Ryan McLeod, and Marc-Andre Fleury with your 0.8 points. Man. Almost wish I didn't start a goalie.
All right. I'm having a hell of a time with FanDuel here. 107.1 points is what I ended up with last week. I think what we did wrong was we were both on Connor McDavid, and whenever that happens, it just never turns out. 14.9.
Yeah.
But I will say this. It was a pretty, I would say, consistent effort. Range, okay, not goaltending notwithstanding, my range for production was 8 to 20 points among skaters, which is pretty good. Notably, Wallman had a goal with he had the Red Wings lone goal, had 20 points. Oliver Bjorkstrand also had a goal, 18.4 points, and then everybody else was beneath that. Goddamn James Reimer couldn't live up to the hype. Only got me 4 points. That was probably no, I was still 20 points out. So maybe with a good goaltending performance, I would have had been in the money, but it wasn't meant to be. But we don't live in the past here on the Canada podcast. We live in the here and now. Again, FanDuel was screwing me around this morning, so I got to get my lineup here. I'm just going to hammer through it quickly. Mick, who do you got?
Who do I got? So I went differently. Normally I start on the back. Oh, no, my goalie's out. What am I going to do, guys? Normally I start on the back end, and I say, man, I need a win. That is the only way you win these contests, is you have to get a goalie. I'm going the complete opposite. I found the cheapest possible option. I was like, I don't care. Goalies are getting me 0.8 points when I spend $8,000 on Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm going to save $2,000. I'm just going with whatever crap is at the bottom of the barrel. I'm going to go with Elvis Merzlikins in net. He is the cheapest starting goalie that I could find on FanDuel. Where are you? Merzlikins. There we go. Projected goalie. Woo! Against Detroit. Detroit's not like that incredible. And maybe he gets lots of shots on nets, right? High-scoring game. Get me some points that way. All right. I kind of went studs and duds approach from that point forward. You want some offensive production? Man, I love me some Jack Hughes, $9,500. I'm going to pair him at center with Jordan Staal. Plays on the third line, Carolina versus Pittsburgh. Former team. That could be a narrative where maybe he has an assist. Maybe throws down or something like that. Shots on goal. No, maybe he has as many as Brett Pesce. At winger, I'm going to go with Kirill Kaprizov at $9,800. They're playing Arizona. Arizona's there. I don't know. Lots of shots on net. It's Saturday night. Maybe we see something there. Nenestikov, Tampa Bay at St. Louis, plays on the fourth line. $3,700. That's a guy I've heard of. Could he do something? Probably not, but I'm kind of throwing that spot away. On defense, I've got Jakub Slavin, $4,800, and Owen Powers, the man of mystery himself, $38. And then utility, I went with Nico Mikola because his name kind of looks like mine, and I thought, oh, maybe that's like something. Plays on the top line for St. Louis, and going to pair him with Jack Eichel. Vegas gets Edmonton. They played last night. I'm thinking maybe the Oilers are a little bit tired. They had the Sharks. The Knights are a different breed of hockey team compared to the Sharks. So we'll see. Jack Eichel, I had you a couple of weeks ago. You got 0 points. What are the odds of you having 0 points again? So that was kind of my opinion. So big guns, Hughes, Kaprizov, and Eichel. And I'm hoping that they all get like 50 points. Last week, the fact that I didn't break 100 when we looked at the leaders later on in the night, there was, I don't know, 10, 12 guys that had 50 points each. So the fact that I couldn't find one of the dozen players that was put over 50 points, that's what my whole team scored. Shows just kind of, I don't know, my previous strategy wasn't working. So we're going to see if I can hit a little bit more on the duds. If that doesn't work, I don't know. I think I'm going to do like all $7,000 players next week or something. Just see what happens. I don't know. Something's got to change. I've been sucking for a while. I will be the first to admit that. So maybe don't do what I'm doing.
Well, I don't know. I feel like you're always dancing around things. You always got good ideas. But I feel like DFS, I think part of it is honestly just not rolling the dice, but maybe like to be successful, I think that part of it too is like you got to do a smattering approach. Like you got to have bits and pieces. You got to have multiple lineups in different tournaments to see how it really goes. But all that's to say, I wish you good luck with your entries. I was kind of half tuning in, half not tuning in because I was hammering through my own things. But I think I've landed somewhere comfortable. I think I like what I got on the table here. So I'm just going to let her rip. I'm going all in for all the wrong reasons, but I'm doing it anyways, so it doesn't matter. The card's already been written. I'm doing a Maple Leaf stack, and this isn't where it ends, foreshadowing for later. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Michael Bunting, and Matt Murray are the foundation of tonight's roster. Boston has not lost in regulation. Toronto, and I know that I kind of maybe passively alluded to it, I think goaltending is going to be better. The team, other than that, has been firing off a loss against the Red Wings. This feels like a nice bounce back spot for them. So I'm all in with the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's complemented with I think just undervalued players. Ryan Johansson, second line center with the Preds, only $4,500 against Buffalo. Buffalo loves to play the run and gun games. Nashville scores at home. Alex Killorn, Bolts are on the road against the Blues. Blues couldn't hold the Flames at bay, and they're actually one of the worst analytics teams in the league. That's good news for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are one of the best analytics team in the league. Alex Killorn feels like he's a little undervalued. I've added Ryan McDonough. He plays on the first line. Again, $3,900. Anyways, I hope that he has... I know that he's not the big dog. I know that Roman Josi gets all the credit, but I think that he plays a secondary role, and we're going to see him accumulate points somehow. Ty Smith got on the board. I think he actually got the Penguins' only goal last night. Did he? Or maybe he was in the penalty box for the wrong reason. Anyways, Ty Smith. I don't know a whole bunch about the guy. I saw his name when I was watching last night. I liked what I saw. So Ty Smith is in there. My last utility spot, Evgeny Dadonov. I know that I've gone to this well before and it hasn't worked out, but Montreal... limited offensive upside. Dadonov is a guy who's feels like he's gonna get the lion's share of the chances, at least with shots, that sort of thing. So $3,900, why not? That leaves me with no dollars and a coin flip to see whether or not I end up with some money in my pocket tonight.
So I did make a change. I hate Jack Eichel. His face bugs me. I am done with you. I gave you a chance, and I remembered that. I looked at one of my memento tattoos that I have on my arm, and it said, Jack Eichel can suck a big one. So I went with Sebastian Aho instead, saved $2,000, and was able to upgrade my Nenestikov to Jaden Schwartz. Seattle versus Chicago. They put up some points. They like their guns, running gun there, so we'll see what happens.
If I would have been paying closer attention, I would have told you to fuck off with Jack Eichel. I fucking hate that man.
Yeah.
I think I've been on this. Now, we're basically assuring him of a hat trick in a 5-point night, but my God.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Like I said, burnt again. I checked the tattoo and said, do not make that mistake. And I said, okay. Apparently I like Carolina over Pittsburgh tonight. I'm okay with that. I'm completely fine taking what are they, second overall in the standings? Yeah, sure. Cool. They got to do it somehow. So let's see what happens. Let's see. I don't know why it became Mario there for a second. So just so excited about that movie, you know.
I was going to say it's a better than Chris Pratt's interpretation of Mario. So.
There you go. Sweet, yo. So yeah, good luck to you. I don't know, man.
Well, if that's not a sound doesn't adequately express how we're feeling about DFS these days, I don't know what it is, but that's okay. We're moving on because we've got 2 more exciting segments to get through.
Woo, there we go. So on from my dirty fantasy to Bettor Advice. We take 100 theoretical dollars at the start of the year. We bet it each and every week. Keep all the profits. We tell you how smart we are. We go from there. I was doing all right. So I was up 3-1 on the year. Went poopy last week. I went 0 for 3, down to 209. So I still have a little bit of money in my pocket. But last week hurt a little bit. And that was one of those tough ones. My fantasy sucked. My gambling sucked. As a gambler and an avid fantasy player, I find these are like the toughest situations to get out of. I've lost a little bit of confidence in my abilities. So, I don't know. I've got 2 picks today. I'm going to try and, take some shots, see what happens. I'm not going to put too much on it, but it is what it is. I would like to point out that I had overs in the Edmonton, Colorado game and Detroit, Toronto. I'm pretty sure every single game. So there was 12 games on the slate. 10 of them went over their totals. I picked the only 2 that didn't. That shows you how much of an asshole I am. And I think the Senators let me down against Seattle. So we'll see if I make that same mistake again.
I was just double checking because I couldn't exactly remember who I bet on, but then it came back to me. And it came back to me in all the worst ways because I also had an 0 for week. I think that drops me down to about 350 on the season. Carolina, Columbus, I thought it was going to be low scoring. It was a scoreless first period, and then they erupted after that. Jackets went on to win 4-3, lost that one. I said that Knights appeared undervalued, even though the price continued to drop on them. Well, I should have listened to the betting market because Kings trounced them. And then I flip-flopped between Montreal and Shootout, and I landed on Shootout, and then, of course, Montreal won in regulation. And they scored with, I want to say, less than 2 minutes. No. Sorry, they scored 3 goals in the third period, one of which came in the final 10 minutes. So, anyways, forgettable look, not proud of where I ended up. But, again, here and now, I got 5 picks. You probably can put together what the 5th one is. How many picks you got?
Only dos.
All right, I'm going to let her rip with a couple here then.
Yeah.
I told you how fond I am of the Toronto Maple Leafs. At least that was implied with me going a full stack with them. Toronto Maple Leafs plus 134. Boston hasn't lost in regulation. I feel it's like a little bit of a flat spot for them coming back from a Western Conference road trip. Maybe their clocks are out of whack. Maybe the Leafs just outplay them. Whatever it is, I like the Leafs' chances tonight. Plus 134, $20 to win, 26.80. I'll throw one more in here. This has been hitting less regularly, and it's starting to really chap my ass. And I don't know if this... It's something that I had recognized for decades, like where it was like second night of a back-to-back with a backup. These games tended to go to overtime. Not the case this year. It's just not. It's not hitting. But I'm too stupid to not get burned by it again. The Penguins started fucking dusted Tokarski last night. Casey DeSmith. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe it's the starters that need to start on the back end now. At Carolina, who are a tough out, but I feel like another bit of a rebound spot for the Penguins. Plus 340, $20 to win 68.
Sweet yo. I'm also sticking with the highlight of the, I guess, early slate. 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, depending where you are in the country. Leafs, Bruins. Again, feeling a little down and out. I was just going to go to the well. What's my bread and butter? Betting against the Leafs, emotionally hedging. So I was going to put $50 on Boston to straight up win. But I think this game's going to be close, right? I think at this point, it is a statement game. I realize it's the mid-season. Really doesn't matter. But you're playing pretty much, two of the top teams in the league going at it. I think it's going to be close. And if I can get, not plus money, but almost 2-1, at +1, I'm going to take the Maple Leafs +1. I get a little bit of insurance on my $50 if the Leafs for some reason lose. It probably will be a one-score game. I guess I get burnt on an empty net goal. But overtime, pretty much covered at that point too, right? To recover so I'm going to put $50 on that to try and win. Almost $100. So $95.50 would be the return on that bad boy. Toronto +1.
I dig it. I'll give you two more here. I'm going to start with my favorite play of the night, and I'm going to bet a lot of real money on this when I go out and make my own plays. Buffalo at Nashville, over 6.5. This actually opened at over 6. It's quickly adjusted. I still like over 6.5. -112, $20 to win 17.86. Nashville plays a very offensive-minded game at home, and goals just come naturally for them on home ice. Maybe it's a lineup thing. Maybe it's a confidence thing. I don't know. Nashville's good at scoring at home. Buffalo, good at scoring themselves. Highest scoring team in the league, in fact. So I think that we're going to see some goals. I could see even a 3-2 first period. I wouldn't put it past either of these teams. And then maybe if you're read between the lines of my last overtime pick, you kind of feel a little frustration on my end how these overtime bets just aren't hitting for me this year. And there used to be some pretty reliable trends where there was some consistency to them. I'm going in a completely different direction. I used to take this approach last year. Maybe I even did it earlier in the year where there's always one game where you're like, how the fuck did this game go to overtime? Tonight, for me, it's Arizona Coyotes at Minnesota Wild. $4.20 that this game goes to overtime. $20 to win $84.
Nice. Shoot your shot when you got it. For myself, I am putting a franchise, an organization, a frisky group of individuals on call. I bet on you last week against Seattle. Seattle came and just ran a train on the Eastern Canadian teams. I guess the Leafs beat them. But then the Senators got demolished by them. The Montreal Canadiens got demolished by them. I had money on the Senators. I also have money that the Senators will straight up win against the Colorado Avalanche tonight. I'm going to put $50 on that. And this is a big statement. It's a big statement because Ottawa, you're dead to me if this doesn't go through. You won me over with your friskiness and your truculence and those little intangibles. Strutzel, Kachuk, yeah, I was in. You had a terrible loss season. I called it. Every pundit was trying to suck your giant long dick. Ryan Reynolds is, you know what? Ryan Reynolds, I will never watch another movie franchise you're in. Your wife, kind of homely looking, to be honest with you. Unless, of course, you beat the Avalanche tonight. And then guess what? Blake Lively, top-notch, fine, beautiful lady you got there. So, there's a lot on the line in Colorado tonight. I'm going to make the stakes even more higher. that was very anticlimactic there, Dan. I don't know. I was on a little bit of a rant. So, Senators, 2.4. Let's go.
Wow. Well, I feel like if they do win, you got to go you're full send one direction or the other.
Well,
I get it. But if they win, I feel like you got to buy a Sens jersey. And then I started thinking, it was which Senators player would Mick appreciate the most? I was a big part of me was maybe Alexander Daigle. Maybe he wants the ironic early 90s jersey, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, they have to be very the worst player. I still I'm keeping my eyes out on a Nathan Peterman Bills jersey because 5 interceptions in the first half of a football game is hard to do. You have to be a real fucking asshole to have that happen to you. Nathan Peterman, you live up to that billing. So,
but
all right.
Do you remember? Sorry, one quick. You remember Nate Peterman in Buffalo? How he was for a few games he was just the savior a few years ago. Anyways.
Yeah, sky sometimes falls, so we'll see what happens. In my mind, I'm like Boston's winning, And then Ottawa's winning, and there's some Ottawa Senators fan out there being like, "Oh, Toronto lost, great. Oh, we won, awesome. Where are we in the standings?" And like 26. He's like, okay, all right. Well, I'm having a pretty good night though. Like, I guess I'll go have like a pocket dog, walk home.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's a very modest life that man is living. So like, I'm envisioning that man, and I'm like, I could see that happening. So.
Last pick. If you just parlay all my 4 picks together. $10 to win 1,017.
Boop, boop. All right, let's fucking drive that nail into that coffin.
I was gonna say maybe Sens jerseys are on me tonight. I don't know.
There you go. I think so. Courtesy of the Canada Puck podcast. We'll even buy one for a fan at that point.
So that's $600 in jerseys. That leaves me $400 in liquor. Yeah, you know what? Tell you what, if that parlay hits, Sens jerseys for everybody.
Sens jerseys for everyone. There you go. All right. So we don't have a hockey game now. We have one coming up in a little bit.
Shortly.
Shortly. Oh no, my page needs to reload. There you go. So normally there's a game that starts at 11. That's not today. I believe we have one thing left at the hour mark. We just always do it. Look at that.
This is an exciting time for the Canada Puck podcast community because this is the first intentional double babe of the week. I was going through all these hockey ladies from the last couple. I was crossing everything. There was announcers I was looking at. I was looking at commentary, social media girls, ice crew. I was looking at everything. We don't discriminate on the Canada Puck podcast, but my heart just kept going back to this one because we've seen her before. We're going to see her again, and she is probably the most magnificent hockey goalie that has ever existed. Michaela Demeter. Let me spell this out for you, Mick. I think you're going to remember her when you see her.
Oh, you actually don't have to because she's always on my newsfeed because I've creeped on her enough that she's one of my... Yeah, no,
If that's not the truest testament of the babe of the week, I don't know what is. You can go up and down this feed, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. There's some hockey picks. There's some fashion picks. There's some bikini picks.
Yeah, like drop-dead, gorgeous, unnatural shapes, and then she's like a goalie in one picture, and I'm like, no, you aren't.
I can't remember. Did she play Minnesota? I can't remember where she first came across our feed. I want to say it was like. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Did she play for the women's team in Calgary or something like that? I think she was like somehow situated in Calgary for a hot second.
Don't you dare, Mick. You better not get my hopes up.
Put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. I hope you have a son. A big... No. I can't butcher quotes today. I wrecked The Simpsons. I'm not wrecking Talladega Nights for anyone.
Okay, so I'm looking... There's a hockey picture here, and I'm doing some creeping in the background, looking at banners. Strathroy Tire. Strathroy, is that Ontario? Anyways, this might be Ontario, this picture. I'm pretty sure Strathroy's Ontario.
Okay, yeah.
Anyways, Michaela, we don't even need to say this out loud. You are the Hall of Fame Babe of the Week, schwing.
We have a giant 50-foot statue outside of our Babe Hall of Fame, so...
That's it.
They said it couldn't be done, but we proved them wrong. It's too top-heavy, they said.
It's going to have a lot of stains on it if we leave it out in the open like that.
Yeah, if we put it in the back room, it would be like a Jackson Pollock painting when you turn a black light on. So, like, at least out front, it has to be a bit more discreet.
We're going to have to mandate a no trench coat policy, I think. That's where we'll draw the line. Michaela Demeter statue, no trench coats.
Have to do the Italian, magnifique.
All right. Well, that was it. That was just a taste of what to expect next week, too. I can't say that it gets better than that, but we got a high standard.
There you go. So that wraps up this week. You're ready to go. You know how to make money, fade our picks at this point, because not that we're on cold streaks, but last week was not a very good effort from us. So,
no, I'm hoping we turn the tides. Mm-hmm. One of us maybe, both of us better. We'll see what happens.
There you go. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's That's all we got. So until next week, when we are back, being rapscallions that we are, I think we have to say, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.